look at this financial analysis project, um, there's some work to do here, which is why it's 50 points. But this is really a big deal. And, this sort of like, this is going to fall into the same vein as, why do I need to learn math if I've got a calculator, right? And there's just some things you need to do. And if you're going to be an investor, I really feel you need to know how to do some very basic financial analysis because sometimes the data that we get is going to be wrong. And or sometimes you're going to want to, go in a different direction and you sort of need to know how to do some very basic stuff, right? And so here's what the project is. You pick three of your companies, right? Um, this way you could sort of get another take on why maybe you're investing in it or why you're not. And so here's what we want to do. You're gonna go get some financial data, various stuff. You're gonna go get stuff from each of the main financial statements, and you're going to plug in, did those numbers increase or decrease, right? And we're going to have a quick chat about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And ultimately, these numbers are really up to you, which is why analysis really is, when you start doing it yourself, it's really subjective. Like, for example, research and development and sales and marketing are expenses. And in general, your human brain is going to say expense is bad. But from my perspective, depending on the company, I want to see them spending money on research and development, R&D. I also want to see them spending money on sales and marketing. And because I'm kind of a nerd, and I say it with a fair amount of pride, like I will go in and do my own analysis, and I will compare companies to companies, and I'm going to try to figure out, what their return on investment on sales and marketing is. And it's a simple calculation. We're not going to do that now. And I want to see how effective their sales and marketing is relative to their competitors. Now they get pretty darn close, but still, once we know how to do these very basic things, then you could start to ask yourself lots of questions about, what do I think would be important? So for me, sales and marketing, research and development, yep, they're expenses, but they're important expenses. Excuse me. Cash and equivalents tells me a lot. How much cash do they have? And because cash is super important, we're in a really, it seems like we're always in a really weird economic time. It just seems like the last 8 years, and maybe it's because I'm getting older. I remember my dad saying stuff like this. It just seems like we're in a really weird period, right? We've got these different transitions underway. And cash is so important, when you've got these really difficult periods going on, because when there's difficult periods, things can happen. And, there could be delays in product releases, or all of a sudden consumer um, demand changes, or all of a sudden there's tariffs, and now you're trying to deal with all these different costs and structures. And so it's important they got a fair amount of cash. And I like to look, did the cash grow or decline? And there's a bunch of times where cash will decrease, and that's okay. Like sometimes you'll see that with companies like Home Depot or Costco, where cash will increase, but and debt will increase, and you're going to be like, "What's going on?" It's kind of where they're expanding, right? Because you open up a new store, it's very capital intensive, But these are the sort of things that should begin to unlock some thoughts in your brain. So where do you get the data? Me, I like going to the SEC.com, .gov, excuse me. And I like to go here because this is the primary source. When a company releases their earnings, they release it to the SEC. That's the law. And so I have a pretty high level of comfort in the data that I would find on SEC.gov. Um, and so, you would just go in and you would type in, Microsoft, because we're going to do Microsoft, and you'd find Microsoft. And then there's all kinds of really interesting information. Like, for example, one right here at the top, insider trading. I'm not going to allow myself to get distracted, but if you You can learn a lot by going to the SEC website and just looking at the financial filings. Like, who is this guy? Is John buying or selling? Let's just look, right? Let's see. John, he is, I believe he's a director. Yeah, he's a director. And a D, it's a disposal. So he disposed of 7,700 shares. It's a lot of money. And let's see, unrestricted. So he, he receives these as a member of the board of directors. But still, he's got 1.8 million left. So he sold a couple. Maybe he was going to have a family barbecue or something, and he needed $100 million. But that's beside the point. You could get the financial information here by going to filing category type. I want all annual and quarterly reports. And on the annual report, there's two types of reports. There's a 10Q, that's a quarterly report. There's a 10K, that's the annual report. So you go look at the latest annual. Let's open up the filing. And it's going to give me that. I want the interactive data because it's a little bit easier to work with. At least it is for me. The other thing you could do is you could just go in and look at 10K and open the document. And then if you open the document, the other one's opening up. What you want to do is scroll down to item 8, which is the financial statements and supplementary data. And then this is what they submitted to the government, right? So there's no question as to whether this data is real or not. And so if you can go back to and it's loading the filing data. We'll set that aside for now. But that's how you would get it on the SEC website. You can also go to aggregators like Yahoo, and they present it. It's so much prettier, right? And so you could go to Yahoo, Finance, Enter, Microsoft, and then it gives you everything, right? It's got the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, dividends that it pays out, and these are the three that we're going to be pulling from, right? It doesn't have stockholder equity. We could probably get that in the balance sheet. Let's take a look. Um, so what it does is it gives you right away, right? What was their total revenue, cost of revenue, gross profit, etc. in each of the years. TTM is trailing 12 months. We don't want that. So to do a quick calc, right, you just take out your calculator. And what we want to do over here is what was the total revenue increase? And so, it is the 2025 number minus the 2024 number, right? So I can't throw my calculator up on the computer screen here, but so 281, 724 minus 245, 122. So we just scrabble up here, right? 36,602. By the way, that's billions. So these numbers, they're reported in millions. Well, this one says thousands, but that's billions. Yeah, 281 billion in revenue. So that is how we would calculate that. So how do you calculate the increase or the decrease? Once you've got that 36,602, you just divide it by that previous year, the 245. 245, 122 equals 14.9. So you could just round 14. Don't round up, because when you're talking about billions of dollars, by the way, this is one of those examples where sometimes the aggregators are wrong, because Microsoft reports in billions and millions. They don't report in thousands. So this is just one example of why I go to the SEC website, but it's okay. We know the difference. So it's a 14.9% increase. That's it. Now you're going to go to research and development, which is, do they give me R&D? Do they break it out? Cost of revenue, gross profit, net operating expense. Wow, they don't give you R&D. So we're going to have to go to the SEC website. Here's the 10K. Here's the income statement. And here we got research and development. So here we've got, once again, take the number, So 2025 is 32,488 minus last year's, which is 29,510 equals, right? So 2978, that was the increase. And then we divide that by that previous year, which is 29,510. And it's 10%, right? So they had a 10% increase in research and development. Why would that be important for a company like Microsoft, right? I mean, these guys create products. A lot of them are on the software side, but a lot of them are hardware related. But on the software side, Microsoft is just dumping an extraordinary amount of cash into AI. And so sales and marketing, once again, here's the number. And it was 25. Let's clear my screen here. 25,654, 25,654 minus 24,456. So it's 1198. And then let me divide that by last year, which is 24,456. So only a 4.9% increase. So they didn't go nuts, right? You know, sales and marketing expense has not increased significantly. Is that good or bad? I don't know. But honestly, sales and marketing increased by 4.9%, but it's still translated into almost a 15% increase in total revenue growth because there tends to be a connection between those two. You know, the more money I spend on sales and marketing, that would directly drive sales, or at least that's sort of the thought. That's what you're going to do on this assignment, right? Then we go back to Yahoo and we can find net income to common stockholders. It's right here, right? You'll grab those numbers from here. Now let's go take a look at cash and equivalents. That's going to pull from the balance sheet. So we click on the balance sheet, and you're going to see cash and equivalents, right? And let's see, total assets, liabilities. Oh man, it is not breaking it out. Well, what are you going to do? Oh, here we go. Let's see if it will. Current assets. Okay, cash and equivalents. Nice. Let me look at something. Did I make a mistake when I was looking at operating expenses? I guess if you click this, it opens it up. Look at that. So sales, general, and administrative. There it is, sales and marketing and research and development. I guess you don't have to go to the SEC website. I guess that inner nerd in me was like, send them to the SEC website. Subliminally, I was trying to just turn you all into nerds too. So let's go back to the balance sheet. Let's look at total assets. I want current assets, cash and equivalents. Show me cash and equivalents. There I've got cash and I've got cash and equivalents. So I really want both, right? And so you could just take the sum here. So it'll tell you 30 billion, 242. We got 30, 242 minus, oh no, that's TTM. I don't want that. That was a mistake. I want 18,315 minus last year, 34,704 equals negative. So when you get a negative, make sure you put a dash, right? That dash, so I know it's a negative. And so you know it's a negative. Otherwise, the numbers are going to be all funky and all weird, right? So you got a negative 16,000. Once again, divide it by that previous number, and which is 34,704. 47 negative 47% decline. That's a lot. It's a lot, right? Why would there be such a big decline? Well, this is where you would hopefully be asking questions, okay? And so why? I know it's a lot of it. I own a bunch of the stock, and so it's probably directly related to their AI spending. But now let's scroll down and let's see if we can find shares. Let's see if they're going to give me common stock equity. So I think here they call it common stock. So a lot of this is, let's see. I think I can get everything else I need: total current assets, total liabilities, total stockholder equity. I think we could use common stock equity here. Um, and that will be roughly the same. And what this is, it's not a financial class, but what this is you take uh, 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 assets minus your liabilities, and if it's a positive number, then what they say is this is the value of the assets that are attributable to the shareholders. So in this case, 268 billion. I'll take it. But this is where you get the data. It's not going to take you very long. It's probably 2 cups of coffee, but hopefully it'll get you asking, why, man? Why would not income? It was cash and equivalents. Sorry. Why were cash and equivalents going down so much? And you could like dig in and you could go do a little bit of research and find out. And where you would really do that would be at the SEC website. Not that I'm trying to direct you there subliminally, but you could go find it there. And cash flow is great to look at, but it can be a little confusing unless you've taken an accounting class. Um, but this is cash in, cash out. It's and then a lot of how modern companies are measured has to do with this thing called free cash flow. And but we're not going to go there because that's not part of this class. So that is what we're going to be doing with this financial analysis project. Like I said, 2 cups of coffee, fill in the blanks. And when you're done, take it. Here's what I do. I would take a step back and I'd be like, okay, I would highlight the things that were kind of like I had questions about that I might want to go explore a little bit more. Like, well, why did this decline so much? And I would go through and I'd identify some stuff. Like in this particular case, I don't know that Microsoft is one of the companies yet, but like Google, Amazon, Oracle, those Meta, these are some of the big companies that are spending a fortune in AI. They've gone and borrowed. I think when Amazon just borrowed $48 billion this week. And so you're going to see total well, you probably won't see it yet. In the next report, you'd see the total liabilities increasing. And so if total liability is increasing, you want to ask the question why. And in some cases, if it's a company like Kohl's and total liabilities are increasing, and because you shop at Kohl's that the place just isn't packed anymore, that would maybe be sort of a bad sign, right? And all this is designed to do is teach you how to do this. And I know a calculator can do a lot. And by the way, Yahoo did a lot of this work for you, so you don't have to go dig through the SEC website, which isn't as easy as just using Yahoo. But it's also very valuable. And if you're going to be an investor, you really need to know how to do some basic analysis, or you're just going to be listening to somebody else's analysis, and you better hope that you agree with them. So that's the assignment. So go get your first cup of coffee. Let's get this thing going. When this is done, go get your second cup of coffee. Before you know it, you'll be done. Peace.